got to me. She said we should hook up the boyfriend and boogie. Don't know me, then look on. I'm being the clouds. Pool full of Henny, I drink and I drown.
Hey guys, what's up? It is Sam from Harkey Fishing, and welcome back. We are sitting down here at Campbell Point getting ready for the Friday night fishing tournament. It's hot, man. The truck right now is saying it's 101 degrees. Saw 102 while we were driving down here. So, man, it's a hot one. It's definitely important to take lots of water and hydrate yourself out there when you're fishing and be careful. A little bit about the fishing report. A couple days late here. I am just got out of the COVID protocol. Thanks again to Mr. Corona, the old China flu. But I'm feeling a lot better, and so we're back at it again tonight. Didn't get to fish Wednesday night because I was still in quarantine. Felt pretty good, but didn't want to go around to the guys. I did go Tuesday night. For those of you guys that hadn't watched that how to fish brush pile kind of tutorial deal, man, go back and check that out. That was a couple days ago. Really good video on how to. But as far as the fishing report goes, man, the fishing has been phenomenal. My partner and I were just adding up. We've cashed in 11 tournaments in a row now, and so we're finding some pretty good fish. And just like kind of like a broken record here, it has been brush piles. And so anyhow, the lake level continues to drop just a little bit, but they're generating water in the afternoons to meet electrical demands. But we're still sitting at about 916 and a half, I think, last I looked, and I hadn't checked that in a couple days, so I may be just a bit off on that. Water temperatures 88, 90 degrees sometimes in the afternoons and evenings, and it's hot. But a little bit about what the fish are doing. It is definitely the typical kind of late June, July pattern going on. These fish are stacking up in the brush piles, and they're stacking up on main lake points. When they're drawing that current, the bite's pretty decent. Of course, when they're drawing the current, it's the hottest part of the day, so I've kind of been trying to avoid some of that. But the brush pile bite, man, the brush piles that are sitting in 20 to 25 feet of water seem to be working real good. I've caught them out of some 30 feet deep brush piles as well. If you watch that little tutorial thing that we did the other day, we were catching them on a submerged bridge pilings. They were about 30 to 35 feet deep on that, and real good bite on that. Caught a walleye and a bass, and several bass on that thing, just non-stop bass action. But these brush piles, we're keeping it pretty simple. We're throwing either a 10-inch plum worm through them, or we're throwing the 5/8 chomper green pumpkin purple flash jig through there, and really working those two things through those brush piles just as slow as we can to keep from getting hung up. And some of those brush piles, some of them are better than others, and it's not always the same brush pile. Honestly, we've been every night we have to figure out what brush pile are they in, and now I guess we've had one brush pile that has really been loaded up with some good ones, and it's located just right. I'm just kidding, I'm not going to tell you that. We've caught a 6-1 out of it and 2 4-pounders now out of that one brush pile, so doing really good on that brush pile. But for the most part, there's been fish in almost every brush pile, but not all of them have the big fish in them. And so you're just going to have to hop around until you find it. And if you find them in there one night, you definitely want to check it the next time you're out. But they're not, a lot of times they'll move to the next one down or whatever. And just the name of the game is fish till you don't get bit, 3 or 4 or 5 casts, move to the next one. And I've really noticed that when you first get there and you pull up on those brush piles, man, I mean, it's just about every cast you'll catch something, and most of the time it's a small Kentucky. Some of them are keepers, but 14 to 15 and a half, 16-inch Kentuckys, and always happy to have a keeper, but a lot of them don't help us overall. But when the Kentuckys quit biting, it seems like that's when, if you're going to get into the meat, into the heart of that brush pile, that's when one of those bigs might bite. And so I always give that thing plenty of time. The old saying of never leave fish is pretty wise. Wait till they quit biting for several casts in a row, and then move on. Several comments on the last few videos, and really appreciate those. Some folks from out of town down and fishing around, and appreciate you guys asking, what I need to do to catch some fish. And like I said, there's still a great drop shot bite. The old Chompers brown pumpkin purple flake, brown purple laminate. Chompers drop shot worm, 4-inch drop shot worm. That works perfect. I put that on #1 Berkley drop shot hook. I'm usually fishing that on 6-pound line, sometimes 8-pound line, but most times 6-pound line. I use a Palomar knot to tie that hook on, and make sure and leave about 1.5 foot tag on there. Put a little 1/4 ounce weight on the bottom of that. Rig that little Chompers drop shot worm on that, and I actually feed mine on instead of like just nose hooking it. I feel like I can keep my worm good for 5 or 6 fish that way, where if I nose hook it, it seems like it ruins it on the first cast and or first fish. And fishing those around bridge pilings really works. I mean, and you don't really have to have anything fancy. I usually idle by them with 2D sonar. When you see your arches, try to pay attention to how deep they are, 20 to 25 feet typically, sometimes 30. And remember your rod. You know, I've showed this in some previous videos, but you know, take your drop shot, put it in the water, open the bell on your spinning reel, and with the rod tip right at the water, pick it all the way up about as high as you can pick it up. That's 10 feet. Let it sink down until it just about touches the water again, and pick it all the way up again. That's 20 feet. Okay, and then when it gets to 25, then do about 1/2 of one, engage your reel, and when it gets to the bottom, start fishing. And you know, that's old timer stuff. You don't have to have these fancy electronics for that. And as far as finding the brush piles, they're tricky to find too. You know, a lot of them are labeled with a green sign. It'll say brush pile, but they're offshore a ways, and you know, sometimes you can cast to them from the bank, sometimes you can't. But the Mo Fishing app has those listed. It's a little tricky to use because there's not good service everywhere, but you know, give that a whirl if you don't have fancy electronics with those waypoints listed. You know, use the Mo Fishing app and check it out. And you don't have to have live sonar either. You can use a jig or something like that, fish it pretty fast, let it get to the bottom, you know, reel it along until you hit the brush. And when you hit the brush, then you're gonna, you know, make you a landmark up there on shore that says, okay, between my boat and that tree is that brush pile, and then fish it. And you know, keep little tips like that in mind when you fish these brush piles. And there's still plenty of fish to be caught that are, you know, out here on some of the drops and some of the main lake ledges. I don't talk a ton about those just because they're harder to find those. But there's fish to be caught out there. You know, cranking a 20-foot deep ledge right now, it still works, especially if it's main lake and you can find a pretty sharp ledge. There's people catching them on these deep diving crankbaits and stuff like that. But for me, man, I go crazy over fishing these brush piles. They're so much fun because you never know what you're gonna catch next. You know, it might be a 12-incher and it might be a 6-pounder. So anyhow, appreciate you guys watching. Don't forget, hit like on these videos. It really helps us out. And you know, until next time, man, take a kid fishing, keep that line tight, and man, send us messages if you got questions or anything that you want to hear about. Appreciate it. Y'all take care.